We're back with Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller.
All right, hey, we are back with Seattle Real Estate Radio on KKOL 1300. Hey, thanks for sticking with us today. And, before we... And I'm really excited to talk to Erica. But before we have the opportunity to talk with Erica, I want to close kind of our conversation we had before we went to break. So, this whole deal with inventory not being as low since 1999. Yeah. It hasn't been this low since 1999. Mm-hmm. Over the break, I pulled up some stats, and it's kind of. I don't want to go into too much detail here, but I think we're going to do a follow-up on this, Christian, because some of these stats and some of the data that I looked at over the break show some pretty crazy things in regards to home affordability and home values. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of crazy that right around 1999, 2000, we're seeing the same trend there that we're seeing right now with the Home Affordability Index, which is a total separate conversation, and inventory. Yep. So
it's very interesting how they are correlating.
They're starting to re-correlate now during the boom and during the meltdown, how they separated. Yep. And during the boom, how they separated. But you're starting to see some things that I think will be encouraging facts for our viewers. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to chat with. Let's make a point. I want to take some notes here on how to come back to that here in the next week or two for you guys. And then remember I talked about the top 3 New Year's resolutions for 2015. Yep. I want to go over 2016. 2016, excuse me.
We're only going to say that wrong about 400 times. Don't worry about it.
Can't get 2016 down. But number 1 was no surprise, losing weight. Yep. Number 2 was getting organized, which fits right into our guest today. And then number 3 was spend less, save more. Mm-hmm. And that, again, kind of ties right into the purpose of this show, man.
Exactly.
Is we're always bringing people on that are going to help you manage your real estate investment, which is home ownership, and save money in doing so. So I can't wait to share with you some of the guests we're going to have this year that are really going to help you spend less and save more.
Yep. Yeah, so, it's going to be a good year. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. Tons of good info. But I want you to bring on Erica because I'm super excited to hear this gal.
All right. So her intro is pretty amazing. So Erica, before I go into anything, why don't you tell us your name and tell us what you do?
Okay. Thank you. I'm privileged to be here. My name is Erica DiMiele, and I pick up diapers for a living. That's what I do. That's my jam.
So do you work at a child care center?
I wish. Adult and child.
Yeah.
Diapers.
I didn't even think about that portion.
Ew.
Yeah. I didn't think about that portion at all. So Erica is actually the owner and founder of Katharizo, which is an organizing company. Yes. She deals a lot with hoarders and hoarding. She's a fully licensed, bonded, and insured professional organizer and hoarding expert here in Seattle. She serves residential and small business clientele throughout the greater Seattle area and even remotely around the nation. She's been featured on the show Hoarders, which will be airing here in a couple months. Yeah. And she is pretty smart. We've been talking with her.
Yeah, don't let the whole diaper thing fool you.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny. I asked her to intro herself, like that, because she has a picture. And I think this is the picture that we should use on our website, showcasing our guest. But it's her literally holding, with a face mask on, right? Holding a diaper. And tell us about that, Erica. You just have to tell us the story behind this photo.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll share that with you. So this is a client who I've been working with. We've probably done, 400, maybe 450 hours in her home after I looked at all her invoices. And this is one that constantly regresses. And so my assistant and I went in there, and she was out of town. So I work in homes. Even when my clients are out of town, they give me their keys, which is always just an honor. They give me their garage door opener and keys, and we work when they're not there, which sometimes I prefer.
Yeah.
Because I get to make my own decisions. And so we went into her room, and there were just diapers everywhere. And her bed, I had pictures. I mean, this is what I should post, but her bed was covered in maggots because of left food, weeks old. Wow. And we got that whole place whipped into shape. And then I didn't see her, I think, for a month. And then, I just was receiving calls from her that she needed me. And so it's totally psychological. So when people think about hoarding, It's not just the act of keeping or acquiring things. It all begins in the mind. And that's how I approach organizing, because you don't leave a diaper on your floor for 3 weeks without picking it up inside a Dorito bag without there being some sort of mental disconnect, you know?
That's not a normal thing to do.
No.
So is that kind of the approach that you take? Is it more the psychological, mental aspect of things? I mean, tell me about that.
Yeah, you know, it is. And so I think that's kind of how I try to differentiate myself from other people in the industry, is not focusing so much on the possessions, but the disconnect in the compulsive acquiring of it, because I focus more on the psychological aspect. Usually a hoarding, they always say there's a trigger. And for most of my clients who do hoard, there is certainly a trigger. If that's a loss of a loved one, a death, a loss of a home, eviction, foreclosure, the loss of a spouse, child. I mean, there's always a trigger where the hoarding maybe didn't, you know, because there's so many studies going on about hoarding, and they're studying the gene that is related to hoarding. But usually there is a trigger associated with it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when we were introduced to you, Erica, one of the things as I researched and looked you up, you know, we had an organizer on the show earlier, and it was it's a totally different approach, different business model. But what really kind of grabbed my attention is Erica is the youngest female professional organizer to tackle the messiest hoards in the Pacific Northwest. I thought that was really a really intriguing. Like, when I read that, I was like, okay, I got to talk to this gal, because you know, I was telling you over on break, before I got into finance, I was a professional strength and conditioning coach, and I would be hired by physicians to come in and tackle some very difficult dietary and fitness problems that they may have in their clients. And it was never about the diet. So many people focused on the diet, and so many people focused on the exercise routine. But when you could really peel back the layers of the onion and really find out what was causing that person to just let themselves go physically, and address that problem, the diet then just happened. The workouts just happened. And so I hear you saying the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, even for myself, I mean, in maintaining my health, it's just about choices, you know? And I always say to my assistant, I have one employee, there's times when we get discouraged on a job because we're like, how do we change these people? But that's just it. You know, I can't help someone who can't help themselves. And that goes with things in my life, daily decisions. If I don't wake up in the morning, I mean, easily I could like lay in my bed until 1 o'clock p.m. But that's not healthy, and that's not my lifestyle. So it's just like that, choices. Yeah.
That's what everything boils down to.
That's right.
So how do you become a hoarding expert? How do you get into that? How does that start?
How do you get on Hoarders?
You know, that was such a great opportunity. So long story short, I mean, with anything, so after high school, I did a lot of nonprofit work overseas. And while all my friends were going to get their degrees, I just thought, as much as I want to accrue like $50,000 of debt and get a degree and then work at Starbucks, which isn't bad, you know. I just thought, I'm going to take my time, and I'm going to, you know, what do I want to do? You know, like any 20-year-old.
Let's figure this out.
Totally. So I lived in the homeless district of San Francisco for 3 months doing outreach work in the red light districts in San Francisco, and then also in the homeless district, and then went to Thailand and Vietnam, traveled all around Thailand and Vietnam working in the red light districts and orphanages and the slums, came back, did some online classes, and I just always, and then I kind of took some self-inventory and thought, okay, what do I want to do? And I've always been so organized, like OCD organized. Like I don't have to touch a doorknob 5 times before I leave the house, but I'm very organized. And so I thought there has to be some sort of industry out there that caters to this kind of mind.
To my weird way of thinking, because that's how I am too. It's like, I'm not like you, obviously, but I have my own weird way of thinking that's different than most people. I think a lot of successful people do.
Totally.
And that's, once you figure out what path that leads you to down, that's when you're good. That's when you're good to go. So it's,
Totally. So I agree. So I did some research and then found out about the National Association of Professional Organizers. It's just a nationwide association, and they call themselves the Organizing Authority. So I'm affiliated with them. I've been a member for 2 years.
Cool.
And then just started volunteering for massive hoards that I could find. I worked for another organizing company for a little under a year, went to these meetings and just plunged and jumped in and just thought, you know, these women are running their own businesses, and so I'm going to open my own. and
Nice.
have been in business for 2 years.
Wow.
Well, I'm curious with clients that are prone to hoarding.
Mm-hmm.
You go in and you help them. Do you do follow up and see if they revert back to hoarding lifestyle?
Yeah. So how I approach that is, I give them tools. And I think as I was saying on break, when I got into the organizing industry, I thought, do I need to have all these like savvy storage systems? Like, do I need to know all these little like mason jar tricks? And that's just not my jam.
Yeah.
So when I go into a home, I evaluate the home. We go room by room. We touch everything. I help them make decisions. And then, usually with someone who hoards, there is a lot of regression. It does begin in the mind because they've created these neurological pathways to acquire. If that's with someone who grew up in, the Great Depression, they might want to keep because they were without for many years.
Yep.
Or, a mother who lost their spouse. And so that's a trigger.
Yeah.
Yep.
Usually there is regression. And so I always offer my services as follow-up. I wish I could do this for free. But and I always say that. I say that to my clients. I wish I could do this because I love it. Just pro bono, but that's just, I can't do that.
You got to make a living.
Totally. I have bills to pay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, totally. So there is regression, but I'm always there for my clients and they know that.
Yeah. So how do you see having an organized, functional home change someone's life? I mean, how do you kind of see that transformation?
Yeah, for me, when I organize a home, I feel when I go into a cluttered home, I've seen everything, so I am completely unfazed. There's nothing you can't show me in a home that I haven't seen. So when but I feel anxious. When I go into a hoarded home, I'm like, I just feel like irritable all of a sudden. And usually the client is struggling with their weight. These are common things. Struggling with their weight because they can't, cook meals in their kitchen. So there's all these things that they just are unable to do because the clutter is prohibiting them from doing it.
Yep.
So when I organize, to get back to your question, when I organize and I see the clutter clearly, being taken away, it's like a weight lifted. And that's what I love. It's not even about the storage systems or about it's about making the home functional. Yeah. But for me, the weight that's lifted off of my clients is why I do what I do.
So real quick, what is your favorite room to organize in a house?
Oh, gosh. Oh, man. I wish I had like a room that I loved. Probably... I'd say maybe a kitchen, but sometimes that's kind of boring. I see the reason that I do hoards is because I get bored easily. I'm like, I'll totally organize for anybody, and I love closets and I love kitchens, and I'll do it. But I'd say probably a kitchen. Yeah.
Nice. All right, so we are going to come back with Erica DiMiele here in just a minute on KKOL 1300 AM.
You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller.
Hello, and welcome back to Seattle Real Estate Radio here on KKOL 1300. We are here again with Erica DiMiele of Katharizo Organizing. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Wow.
She is the youngest female professional organizer to tackle the messiest homes and hoards in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes,
I love
she
that.
is.
I'm going to say it
I know.
100 times.
Thank you.
I love it. No, I wanted to have a chance to kind of grill her a little on this. I think this is a phenomenal approach that you take to helping people organize their homes. So I hear that in addition to organizing homes, you organize offices, correct? I mean, are there commercial hoarders?
I haven't done a whole lot of offices. I've done some. It's not my go-to or perhaps my ideal, but I have, file solutions that I offer to my clients. I would say paper. People are really afraid of paper, but I just tell my clients everything is paperless with anything.
Yeah.
Thanks. I mean, you need to keep your home, your home assets and things like that, life insurance, birth certificates, etc. But everything's paperless. But people just have paper everywhere. So.
Yeah, I can't get over this picture that I keep looking at on your phone. And again, we're going to have it up on the website. I think that's going to be our picture for introducing our host today. But some of the situations that you put yourself in, I just can't imagine it. I can't imagine people living like that. Obviously, it's a reality because these are your clients and you work with a lot of these folks. But I think the biggest thing when you are organizing a home, I just have to understand this. When you walk into a home and you see a room wherever your phone is, that picture that you show me, and you see that, like, are you like, oh, cool, I got a job? Or are you like, holy crap? I mean, what goes through a mind of an organizing expert when you see that?
Yeah. So, even worse than that one, the first hoard that I ever, for Katharizo, was one of my first hoards. I don't know even where I got the client. They just come to me. They flock to me, these people, which I love. I walk into a home and the whole house was covered in cat excrement. And so the picture I showed you wasn't even the worst of it. So there was probably 4, maybe 5 inches of cat excrement covering the entire home. I've found, adult magazines covered in that cat excrement.
Oh my gosh.
So that's kind of your brain just kind of,
So you're not like you. You're like,
No.
okay, so how do I tackle this? Like you switch then to damage control, I guess, or cleanup control.
Yeah.
What do you do next?
Sure. So basically, when I have a new client, I go in, I offer a 1 hour free, no obligation consultation, and I walk in and I'm always very aware of my face and my body language. I never cross my arms. I always either have a Starbucks or my phone in my hand. I tell them I'm not going to take any pictures. I'm not phased. I approach it from a very clinical point of view. Even though I don't hold, therapist credentials, I do have those resources, and so much of it is psychological.
Yeah.
Deriving from some sort of tragedy or trigger. So I always try to be very conscious and completely compassionate and unfazed, because it just is what it is.
Yeah.
And so I'm not like, in my mind, when I see cat excrement and I'm like walking on like layers, I'm like, okay, this kind of messes up my brain, know. But then I look at the person who lives like that, and they don't want to live like that, but for whatever reason they are. So I approach it from a very holistic clinical point of view.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Compassionate.
And it's I can kind of correlate that to our business, being at least on my side. I'm sure it is on your side too, Dan. But it's a very emotional process, a psychological process, and I often joke that I'm a part-time psychiatrist. I mean, because that's what it is half the time. People are freaking out because they're buying a house, and it's an emotional roller coaster. It really is. So I can kind of understand, because that's the mindset we have to have in this business.
Well, it is. It's a lot alike. So, for example, in my industry, I look at credit reports, and your credit report is either you have great credit. I mean, there's no middle of the road. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with you. You have good credit, or you have bad credit. You have bad credit because of habits. You don't just. I get that some people go through a divorce, which causes, where something that was out of your control that caused your credit to drop. But for the most part, most of my clients or people that I pull credit on and look at that have poor credit, they're habits. That you habitually have a problem with either taking on too much debt that you can't handle and not paying it on time, or you are very, very unorganized and you just simply don't care and you don't pay your bills on time. So it's a psychology. It has a lot to do with a frame of mind. It's a mindset. And I can connect the dots between the industries. And I think that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on the show, is because you get the fact that you're not a cleaner. We were talking about this over the break. You made it clear, Dan. I'm not a cleaner. I'm not going to come in and just clean your house. I'm a hoarding expert. So you're going into homes where, oh my God, I mean, there's cat poo. And you say layers.
Adult magazines covered in cat excrement. I mean, it's just your brain. Yeah.
Kind of explodes.
I want to shoot my cat when she takes a dump in the house.
Exactly.
Or when, in the past, if she ever did. I mean, I literally was like, what? No.
Yeah.
But you're talking about multiple droppings. Anyway, it's just making me.
Well, it's totally true. And, I have so many clients who declared BK because of their spending compulsions and their habits. And my rates are very reasonable for what I do. And so I take pride in them, and I don't apologize.
Yeah.
When I was newer, I tried to accommodate to every client, because you want to. But in business and with working with people, time is money. So anyway, I have a lot of clients who declared BK, but they, shop on Amazon local, or there's an Amazon package arriving every hour on the hour when I'm there. Yeah. So it's rewiring, a person's approach to how they view their possessions and how they are not your life. Yeah. And then creating new neurological pathways to thrive in life and not just survive by your addictions.
And I love that. And you have the ability to connect clearly from, how successful you are and obviously some of the things that we've learned about you on how you go in and you make an impression. Not only do you clean up the hoard, but you help change the habits. So that's really big. Okay, so if we have a listener that is listening, and they are, whether they're an extreme hoarder or they just tend to accumulate more than they need, what are some tips that you can give to psychologically, changing that mindset? Some tips that you can give to our listeners.
Yeah, I do all levels of disorganization, so primarily hoards, but like I said, I'll organize for Magnolia moms.
Sure.
I've organized for, Harvard business executives on Mercer Island. I mean, I'll do any job to any extreme. That's kind of my brand.
Love it. Okay.
I love that. So tips, I view things as, and a lot of my clients do, as money. So when I go through and want to discard items with them or encourage them to discard items because there's too much clutter, there's this, they can't let go of it because they view it as money. So I think tips, if someone hoards, I don't require, which maybe I should, but I don't require them, but I want them to be working with a therapist. And I feel like the combo between an organizer and a therapist is awesome because I deal with the possessions, the therapist deals with the mental habits.
Yeah. That is really interesting that you do that. I've never even thought of or heard of that before, but that makes a lot of sense.
It's true because then, I take pictures of the home and then perhaps they send them to their therapist. And so then I've worked with several therapists collaboratively to approach and make an action plan for a home. Little tips. I think just getting rid of what you can. If you buy something new, just the common act of just when you buy something, take something out of the home, look and really look intently at your possessions. What are you using? And a lot of my clients, they love their things and they use people. And I say, switch it. Yeah. Use your things, love people, because there's so many family and interpersonal relationships that are suffering because of gadgets they buy on Amazon. It's not worth it. So I think, getting an objective point of view like an organizer or a therapist in the home to really rewire your brain to rethink your possessions and your relationships with them is what I try to promote. So really, if you're not using it, I have like a 6-month rule, unless it's seasonal, unless it's like winter or spring, summer.
Like Christmas decorations or something like that.
Yeah. A lot of my clients, use descriptive words, I should, or I wish, or someday. And when I hear those words, those are triggers in my brain, and I challenge them on that gently with compassion. Okay, you want to do that project, but the last time I was here 2 months ago, it's still sitting there. Can we discard it now?
Yeah.
And usually a lot of my clients do have ADHD, ADD, and so I try to be very cognizant of that as well. And that's what I do, just come in there objectively and give my point of view.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
And I think this is, if you're listening and this is kind of hitting home with you, you were telling us earlier that you'll do a free consultation. You'll sit down and have a cup of coffee with somebody and hear them out, correct?
I will. Yeah. Free 1 hour.
Free 1 hour consultation. I think there's a lot of value in that. So I would really encourage you, if you know somebody, a 30
friend or family member that's going through this and they need help and they know they need help. Most likely,
you're gonna.
They do know.
I think it's smart. I think it's smart. I think it's the best thing that you can do. The one thing that I'm sitting over here as Christian is talking and Eric, you're talking. I'm just seeing that if I knew of a hoarder, how valuable just a conversation would be out the gate, and building that connection between the two of you, and then obviously your services are just phenomenal, and I love the approach.
I think that your approach of compassionate. Obviously, it comes across in how you're describing things, and I think that's really what people that need your help. They need to know that you are compassionate. And you do understand, and you are just there to help.
And you understand the psychology behind it. You don't. They don't need a browbeater. They don't need a drill sergeant saying, clean this, throw this away, do this, do that. They do need that. Obviously, it's psychological.
It is. And, I hold a couple credentials in chronic disorganization and hoarding, and then I'm also going to school right now to get my psychology degree, which I feel is in tandem with what I do. And so, totally.
Well, I think this is huge. So here's what I want to do, Erica. I want to give a brief overview of you and your business, and then your contact info for our listeners. We're going to have all of Erica's information on the website. But, Erica is considered an industry leader and a guru in groundbreaking hoarding solutions, home and small business organization. Obviously Erica was just, is going to be featured, but she just filmed an episode on hoarders, a local episode on hoarders. Her company, and I don't want to say this wrong, the correct spelling in the website address will be online, but Katharizo, Organizing. She's a fully licensed, bonded, and insured professional organization and hoarding expert in the local Seattle market area.
But she will travel anywhere.
She will travel anywhere, and she'll tackle the dirtiest jobs. So, Erica, your contact info, what's the best way to reach you? Phone, email?
Phone, email, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to give you her phone number right now. It's a call today for 100% free, no obligation, in-home consultation, or she'll meet you for a coffee. Her best phone number is 425-320-9847, and she may even share that picture of her holding a diaper in a Dorito bag with you like she did with us. Again, her number is 425-320-9847, and her contact information will be on the website. I highly encourage you to contact Erica. It's been obviously a great time spent with her today in the studio.
Yeah.
Reach out to her.
Yep, definitely. All right, well, we'll be back with more on Seattle Real Estate Radio, so stay tuned.